June 4th, 1942. Four Japanese aircraft carriers, the same force that had smashed Pearl Harbor, steam toward a tiny atoll in the middle of the Pacific. They believe it's a surprise attack. They believe the Americans are weak, disorganized, and blind. They are wrong. At Midway, the United States doesn't win because of superior numbers or better technology. On paper, Japan still holds the advantage. The real weapon is something far less visible: information. A handful of exhausted codebreakers in dim, smoke-filled rooms have cracked enough of Japan's naval code to glimpse the enemy's plan, and they've persuaded skeptical admirals to gamble everything on that knowledge. This is the story of how fragile clues, risky deception, and split-second choices turned one small battle into the turning point of the Pacific War. Not just planes and ships colliding on the open ocean, but a high-stakes intelligence duel that decided who controlled the future of the Pacific. To understand why Midway was such a gamble, we need to rewind 6 months. After Pearl Harbor, Japan seems unstoppable. Wake Island, Hong Kong, the Philippines, one defeat after another. The Imperial Japanese Navy is on the offensive, and the U.S. Pacific Fleet is bleeding. Yet behind the scenes, something quiet is happening. In windowless rooms at Pearl Harbor and in Washington, teams of cryptanalysts sift through endless streams of intercepted Japanese radio traffic. They're trying to crack JN-25, Japan's main naval code. Progress is slow, incomplete, and uncertain, but it's just enough to shape a desperate plan. In this video, we'll follow that entire arc: the code-breaking race, the internal arguments, the battle itself, and the razor-thin decisions that changed history. If you enjoy deep dives into military history and the hidden world of intelligence, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell, and stay with me until the end for key takeaways that still matter today. After Pearl Harbor, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto knows Japan has only a narrow window to secure dominance. The United States has enormous industrial capacity. If given time, it will outbuild Japan easily. Yamamoto's solution is bold: lure the remaining U.S. carriers into a trap and destroy them in one decisive blow. The target he selects is Midway Atoll, a tiny strategically placed outpost roughly halfway between Asia and North America. On the map, it looks insignificant. In Yamamoto's eyes, it's bait. The plan calls for a complex, multi-pronged operation: carriers striking Midway, surface forces waiting to smash any U.S. response, and a submarine screen to catch stragglers. Confidence is high. Japanese naval aviation is experienced and victorious. What Yamamoto doesn't fully appreciate is that his own communications network using the JN-25 code is leaking just enough clues for American codebreakers to start piecing together his intentions, though not yet the exact target. On the American side, Admiral Chester Nimitz faces an impossible situation. He has only 3 fleet carriers available in the Pacific: Enterprise, Hornet, and the hastily repaired Yorktown. Japan can field more carriers, more aircraft, and battle-hardened pilots. A straightforward confrontation would be suicide. Nimitz's only potential advantage lies in intelligence. At Pearl Harbor's station HIPO, Commander Joseph Rochefort and his team spend long days and nights wrestling with fragments of JN-25. They don't have the full key. Many messages remain unreadable, but patterns are emerging: references to an objective codenamed AF, and timing that suggests a major operation in early June. Nimitz must decide: trust these partial decrypts and concentrate his scarce carriers near a guest location, or play it safe and risk Japan seizing a critical foothold. It's not just a military choice, it's a bet on the reliability of uncertain information and the judgment of his codebreakers. The central mystery for U.S. intelligence is simple but critical: what and where is AF? Intercepts show supply requests, references to an impending operation, and logistical chatter, but not the plain language name. Analysts suspect AF is Midway, but suspicion isn't proof, and Washington's higher-ups demand confirmation. Joseph Rochefort and his team at Station HIPO propose a clever ruse. Midway is ordered to send an unencrypted radio message reporting that its freshwater distillation plant has broken down. Within hours, Japanese signals traffic reports that AF is short of water. That single phrase is the smoking gun. Now Nimitz knows. The target is Midway, and the timing roughly matches previous intercepts. This staged leak is one of the boldest intelligence gambits of the war, a deliberate manipulation of enemy eavesdropping to test an analytical hypothesis. On that confirmation hangs the decision to concentrate America's few carriers northeast of Midway, lying in wait. Even with AF confirmed as Midway, the intelligence picture is incomplete. American codebreakers estimate Japan will bring 4 carriers, but exact order of battle and precise timing are still fuzzy. Messages are partial, keys change, and context is often guessed. Rochefort's team produces probability estimates, not certainties. Inside the U.S. command structure, there's skepticism. Some in Washington think the main blow might still fall elsewhere. Others doubt the reliability of Hypo's interpretations. Nimitz has to weigh conflicting assessments. Conservative staff officers urging caution versus the compelling, yet not ironclad narrative emerging from code breaks. Ultimately, Nimitz chooses to trust Hypo. He orders his carriers to a position northeast of Midway, aiming to ambush the Japanese carriers after they strike the island. It's a calculated risk. If intelligence is wrong, the U.S. fleet might be out of position and exposed. If correct, they'll have the element of surprise, a priceless advantage. The Japanese plan, on paper, is intricate and powerful. Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo commands the carrier strike force, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, veterans of Pearl Harbor. Their air crews are elite, with years of training and multiple victories behind them. Morale is high, confidence even higher. Yet beneath that surface lie critical flaws. Intelligence is one of them. Japanese naval staff underestimate American code-breaking capabilities and assume surprise is intact. Their reconnaissance plan is also fragile. Limited long-range search, tight schedules, and overconfidence in pre-battle assumptions. Submarines are poorly placed. Air patrol coverage is thin, and contingency planning is weak. To make matters worse, the overall operation is dispersed. Yamamoto's surface forces and Nagumo's carriers are separated by hundreds of miles. Coordination depends on radio messages that they assume are secure, but aren't. The Japanese go into Midway believing they know the enemy's position and strength. In reality, they are walking into a carefully prepared American ambush. In the final days before the battle, both sides race to position themselves. On Midway itself, U.S. ground crews work frantically to fortify defenses. Marines dig in, anti-aircraft guns are emplaced, and a mixed force of bombers, fighters, and patrol aircraft crowd the small runways. The garrison knows it's outgunned, but also that help is coming. Out at sea, Task Force 16 under Rear Admiral Raymond Spruance and Task Force 17 under Rear Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher rendezvous northeast of Midway. Fletcher, the senior officer, retains overall command but allows Spruance considerable tactical freedom. Carrier decks throb with activity as pilots study recognition silhouettes, rehearse attack profiles, and quietly contemplate the odds. All of this unfolds under a cloak of radio silence. The Japanese still believe American carriers are far away, recovering from earlier actions in the Coral Sea. In reality, Yorktown, damaged just weeks earlier, has been miraculously patched together to join the trap. Dawn, June 4th. Japanese carrier aircraft rise in disciplined waves toward Midway, dark silhouettes against the morning sky. Their attack severely damages installations, starts fires, and tests the island's defenses, but it does not knock Midway out. American anti-aircraft fire is fierce, and some Japanese planes don't make it back. Meanwhile, U.S. land-based aircraft from Midway launch piecemeal strikes against Nagumo's carriers. They attack courageously, but suffer brutal losses. Torpedo bombers and level bombers press in without adequate fighter cover, meeting swarms of experienced Zero pilots. Nearly entire squadrons are wiped out with little damage inflicted. Yet these sacrificial attacks achieve something vital. They keep Nagumo off balance, consuming his time and attention. As reports trickle in, he must decide whether to rearm his reserve aircraft for a second strike on Midway. or switch their loadouts to attack any American carriers that might be nearby. That dilemma becomes the pivot point of the battle. Vice Admiral Nagumo now faces the most famous decision of Midway. Initial reports suggest no American carriers are present, only Midway itself. His standing orders call for holding a reserve strike group in case enemy ships appear. After the first wave hits the island, his staff presses to rearm those reserve planes with land attack ordnance for a knockout blow. Nagumo hesitates, then authorizes the change. Hangar decks become chaotic as bombs and torpedoes are shifted, fuel lines run, and aircraft are reconfigured. It's a dangerous moment. Fueled planes, live ordnance, and crowded decks make the carriers extremely vulnerable. Then a late reconnaissance report arrives. An enemy force, possibly carriers, has been sighted. Nagumo now needs his reserve aircraft back in anti-ship configuration, forcing another round of frantic rearming. His air group is caught mid-transition at the worst possible time. Over the horizon, American carrier aircraft are already on the way, guided by earlier radar and search sightings. The U.S. carrier strikes on the morning of June 4th are anything but orderly. Coordination between torpedo squadrons, dive bombers, and fighters breaks down. Torpedo squadrons from Hornet, Enterprise, and Yorktown attack at low altitude one after another, largely without fighter cover. They are massacred. Slow TBD devastators lumber straight into curtains of anti-aircraft fire and swarming Zeros. Squadron after squadron is cut to pieces. Some manage to launch torpedoes, but all miss or malfunction. The human cost is horrific. From Torpedo Squadron 8 off Hornet, only one pilot, Ensign George Gay, survives. Yet these doomed attacks drag Japanese fighters down to sea level and pull the fleet's attention outward. Anti-aircraft gunners and combat air patrol are fully engaged at low altitude when something else happens above them. American SBD Dauntless dive bombers, arriving later and from a different direction, begin to appear unnoticed in the clear blue sky, right over the Japanese carriers. In one of history's most dramatic turns of fortune, 3 U.S. dive bomber squadrons, some from Enterprise, some from Yorktown, arrive over Nagumo's carriers almost simultaneously around 10:20 a.m. They find an astonishing sight: Japanese decks cluttered with fueled aircraft, bombs, and torpedoes, the result of Nagumo's frantic rearming. With Japanese fighters dragged down chasing torpedo planes, the sky above is nearly undefended. SBD Dauntless crews roll into steep dives. Their bombs streak down toward Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu. In minutes, 3 carriers are mortally hit. Explosions roar through hangars, igniting fuel and ordnance. Firefighting efforts are heroic, but hopeless. This moment is the payoff of the entire intelligence gamble. Because Nimitz trusted the codebreakers, American carriers are in exactly the right position to launch these strikes. Because Japanese reconnaissance and planning faltered, their carriers are caught at maximum vulnerability. Years of Japanese naval supremacy go up in flames in less than 10 minutes. The battle isn't over after the morning catastrophe. One Japanese carrier, Hiryu, remains operational and strikes back with ferocity. Using her remaining air groups, Hiryu launches counterattacks that locate and hit Yorktown with bombs and torpedoes, leaving the American carrier badly damaged and eventually abandoned. But Hiryu is now alone. American reconnaissance spots her, and in the late afternoon, dive bombers from Enterprise and indirectly Yorktown's displaced air group launch another series of attacks. They find Hiryu and score multiple hits, setting her ablaze. All 4 Japanese carriers committed to Midway are now sinking or doomed. Strategically, the result is catastrophic for Japan. They lose not just ships but irreplaceable veteran pilots and deck crews. The US also suffers, especially with Yorktown's loss, but American industry can replace hulls and aircraft far faster. The psychological balance shifts. For the first time, Japan's aura of naval invincibility is shattered. Stepping back from the chaos of explosions and burning carriers, Midway reads like a case study in how information shapes war. First, intelligence, partial code breaks, traffic analysis, and a single deceptive radio message about a broken water plant enabled Nimitz to guess Japan's plan and location with remarkable accuracy. That allowed a weaker fleet to choose the battlefield. Second, risk and trust. Nimitz bet on Rochefort's analysis despite pressure and uncertainty. Nagumo and Yamamoto trusted flawed assumptions about surprise and American weakness. Both sides gambled. Only one gambled with realistic odds. Third, human factors. Japanese overconfidence, dispersed forces, and rigid planning collided with American adaptability, improvisation, and sheer courage from pilots who pressed suicidal attacks. Chance also played a role. The coincidental timing of U.S. dive bombers arriving when Japanese decks were most vulnerable. Taken together, Midway shows that in modern war, information, judgment, and timing can outweigh raw firepower and even previous battlefield dominance. Midway wasn't inevitable. If codebreakers had been slower, if Nimitz had been more cautious, if reconnaissance planes had missed each other by a few miles, the story of the Pacific War might look very different. Instead, a fragile chain of insights, decisions, and sacrifices produced a turning point that historians still study as the classic example of intelligence-driven victory. If this breakdown of the Battle of Midway helped you see the conflict in a new light, not just as ships and planes, but as a high-stakes information duel, consider supporting more deep-dive history content like this. You can do that by subscribing, turning on notifications, and sharing this video with someone who loves World War II or intelligence history. Let me know in the comments. Which part of Midway do you think was the true decisive moment? The code-breaking, Nagumo's dilemma, or the courage of the torpedo squadrons? And what other battles or intelligence operations should we explore next?